Hello everyone, welcome to the brand new episode of UnLearn HR. Today, it gives me great delight to have an insightful conversation with Mr. Saurabh Nigam. Saurabh is an absolute subject matter expert in the domain of strategically deploying and unleashing the potential of human capital at high growth workplaces. Currently engaged with Omidyar Network as the VP of Human Capital, Saurabh advises startups, scale-ups, and corporations likewise from retail, BFSI, KPOs, e-commerce, and edtech space. In his role, he's advising his portfolio companies in the domain of talent acquisition, employee life cycle. How do you make sure employees are engaged, and how do you make sure employees are super productive, especially in the times where we are right now. All in all, I'm very excited to talk to you. And the topic is something which I believe you must be an absolute expert in, especially you're acing your job to ensure that your daughter is well adept in the VUCA future. So, help me understand right off the bat that, the workplace of 2021, remote, unpredictable, and filled with three generations, right? All the way from baby boomers to millennials to now Gen Z, where I start observing this classic workplace where the senior leadership roles are taken by baby boomers, people who are born in their 60s and 50s. The young management role has been taken over by millennial or Gen Y. And then suddenly you start looking at digital natives who are born in the late 90s, early 2000s, coming in at an intern level or a junior associate level. I think that, we like to call it like a generational Khichdi. So I want to understand from your perspective, what is your reading of the workplace as of now, 2021, where you have generations rubbing shoulders across with each other?
So first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me over here, Omkar. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to be here. And it's a very interesting topic, and it's a very relevant topic, as you rightly said, right? So this generational Khichdi, which you talked about with baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Ys, millennials, as we call them, and Gen Zs, all put in together under one roof, virtual for last 1.5 years, working together towards a common goal, common objective in the same organization. What does that mean for us, right? It really boils down to the fact that, if you really look at the fact that, all these four generations were brought up in a different context, in a different environment, whether it was baby boomers who saw wars, the world wars and so on and so forth, or it was the latest generation, the Gen Z, technologically really much away than any other previous generation. So because they've been brought up in a different context, in a different environment, there is definitely a difference when it comes to their communication style, their working style, style of leadership. How do they build relationships with each other, and how do they look at things like customer service? Obviously, there is a difference in which the way they are oriented towards this common things which makes up an organization. However, it is important to understand, and I fundamentally believe that no side is wrong. It's not that a baby boomer or someone coming from a Gen X, his or her style of leadership, simply because it's slightly different, it is different from how a Gen Y or a Gen Z looks at leadership and leadership styles. There is a right or a wrong here. I don't believe in that. Actually, the way I look at it, that it only brings diversity to the organization. This is just one more element or one more facet of diversity which exists in the organization, and there are so many facets of diversity which can happen, as we all know, right? So to me, generational diversity is something which is a very real thing. An organization needs to understand that. An organization and organizational leadership needs to understand that and figure out ways to manage this diversity so that they are able to leverage the strength which people from different generations bring to the table. I fundamentally believe that every single generation brings a certain strength to the table. And then there are obviously gaps or weaknesses, as we call them, which can exist, right? So, to me, the way to look at it is that it is incumbent upon any organization to first of all, understand this generational diversity, accept it, acknowledge and accept it, and then see how to make the most of it by leveraging the strength and working upon weaknesses, because that's the way to build a great organization. If there is nothing right or wrong when it comes to this generational diversity, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, leveraging those strengths. Over here, if I want to ask you a very specific pinpoint question, that, what kind of similarities are you able to identify with people about their strengths or even, possible challenges or weaknesses, which is prevalent across across generations? Like generation has nothing to do with these trends. So
Yeah,
is there common traits what they share?
definitely. I mean, I do believe that the aspiration to lead, lead a team, lead a function, lead an organization at some point of time in your career exists across generations, right? I mean, I'm not going to put what may change is the time frame. That a Gen X or a baby boomer may look at a 20-year span to go and lead an organization, where a Gen X, a Gen Y, or a Gen Z may possibly want to do it 2 years down the line, maybe starting something of his or her own. But that aspiration to lead, I think is a common thread which I see across multiple generations, across all of these generations. I also feel that the ability to fit in. How would my individual personality fit into an organization, and how will that add value to the organization's goals and objective, is something which is important for people across generations. And that's another unifying theme which I see. Right? I mean, people coming from different generations wanting to see that if I bring to the table a certain kind of DNA or a value system, right? How would this organization cater to that? How would I fit into this organization? That is very important. And on the flip side, I do believe that stress and work-life balance and is something which is common. I mean, it does manifest in different ways in people coming from different generations, but it is at the back of the mind for everybody, right? A work-life balance for someone belonging to a Gen Y, Gen Z would be, am I getting time to follow my passion, for example, right? Whereas for a Gen X or a baby boomer, it would just mean that, okay, am I getting enough time to spend with my family, right? So, but that work-life balance as a concept is at the back of the mind across generations. It's important. It's critical for them.
Got it. Got it. So, I believe that there are a lot of opportunities for these generations or these people who belong to diverse generations to essentially learn from each other. And that is where my next question is leading to. That where do you believe that there are opportunities for baby boomers to learn from Gen X guys to learn from Gen Y, and Gen Y guys to learn from digital natives, and also cross baby boomers to digital natives, Gen Ys from baby boomers. Where do you believe that which kind of skill sets are most likely to be shared from generation to generation in no direction defined?
Right. So let's talk about the fact that any organization needs a healthy mix of solid experience and young vibrancy and newness of ideas, right? And that's where you start kind of leveraging the experience which a baby boomer or a Gen X brings to the table, and versus leveraging the freshness or the newness of ideas which a Gen Y or a Gen Z will bring to the table. So the way to look at this is the things or areas where experience matters, right? Someone who has traversed a corporate journey or organization journey, has seen the highs and lows of a corporate journey, has seen business cycles going up and going down, right? Typically, a baby boomer or Gen X would fit into that profile with 20, 30 years of experience. I think leveraging that experience for a Gen Y or a Gen Z, I think that experience or learning from that experience of people from older generations, Gen X and baby boomers, is very, very important, because it's important to understand that what can possibly go wrong in a journey of organization building, or what are some of the pitfalls you should be aware of, and those can be only be learned from people who have gone through those journeys themselves, right? So I fundamentally believe that leveraging and learning from experiences of Gen X and baby boomers is something which the younger generation need to pick up, right? And they do pick up if the environment is set up in that manner. On the flip side, I think understanding of technology and leveraging technology for enhancing productivity, for innovating, for bringing up newer ideas, fresher ideas to the table is something where the leveraging your Gen Ys and the millennials brings to the table. I have seen many organizations leveraging the experience of Gen Ys and Gen Zs and their ability to understand how social media works, how a new technology works. What is the mindset of the younger customers out there in the market, what would sell, what kind of product features will sell. Those are some of the things which the older generations from Gen X and baby boomers would do well to imbibe, to learn from the youngsters.
Interesting. So, when we are talking about experience sharing from the older guys, or let me call it the gray haired guys, towards the people who are early in their careers or mid in their careers, across classically talking about the Indian organizations or Indian workplace, where there is a fair bit of power distance between people who belong to senior positions and with gray hair, as compared to youngsters, right? The youngsters come with a lot of enthusiasm. There, what do you suggest can be best practices? Because there's opportunities of learning from both ends of the spectrum. But unfortunately, of course, generalizing, but unfortunately, a lot of organizations are not able to build those learning bridges and a very two-way traffic of ideas. How do you suggest an organization can employ certain culture or certain habits, if I can say, to ensure that the younger generation, as you said, are full of ideas, full of understanding of what market trends are going to be. How do you facilitate ideas which comes from the younger generations, and because the action is going to be taken from the senior guys?
Sure. So I think I'm going to divide my answer into two parts. I think it starts with creating an environment where cross-pollination or cross-mentoring can work, right? Now, and then we'll talk about how that cross and what are the different ways of looking at doing cross-mentoring. Now, how do you create an environment? To me, the first and the fundamental principle in any organization building is, how do you create excitement around a shared goal or a shared purpose, right? It starts with that. I mean, I have always said this, that if you bring together a group of people, which is what at a most fundamental level an organization is all about, it's a group of people coming together. But if that coming together of people is not driven by a common purpose or a common goal, it just will remain a directionless force, right? You can put 11 people on a football field, but if there is no goal post, they'll all run in different directions, right? So I think an organization's ability to create excitement and pride around a shared vision, shared goal, shared objectives is the fundamental, right? Because that should cut across multiple generations. You cannot have a situation wherein only people from a specific generation are excited about organization goals and vision. That just doesn't make sense. The fact that you have multi-generational workforce in your organization, you should be able to come up with a strategy, come up with a communication plan, come up with a vision which should excite across board. I mean, which should excite people across generations. So that to me is the starting point. And then linked to that is laying down the fact that we have all come together under this roof in this organization to achieve that common goal or a shared goal which we have. And we can't do that unless we collaborate with each other, right? And there are linkages and cross linkages. And it's if we were to able to do this all by ourselves, we didn't need to bring in people from different teams, different background, different generations together. So driving home the point that collaboration is critical, is key to create a high performing team organization which can then go and achieve its shared goal. So to me, those two are the fundamental levers which any organization needs to have to create an enabling environment for cross-pollination of ideas to happen. So that to me is part one of the answer. Now, part two really goes on to, if you have created that environment, then how do you create an ecosystem wherein cross-pollination can happen, right? I mean, so things like, one obvious way is a traditional mentoring, right? Which we all know, right? You assign a mentor, you assign a mentee, and then hope that they will talk to each other and there will be exchange of ideas. But typically, what happens in a traditional mentoring, it's a one-way traffic, right? I mean, a mentor helps a mentee, right? In a multi-generational workforce, and because of the fact that there is something to be learned from each other in this kind of scenario, which we just spoke about a little while back, it is important that we enable a two-way mentoring process, right? So I think a process or a platform or a system which helps people break the barriers of seniority. And when I say seniority, not just by level, but also by age, by experience, and understand that what is it that a person really brings to the table, right? So if a Gen X or a baby boomer is looking at the profile of a young colleague, Gen Y or a Gen Z, he or she should be able to see or ascertain that, okay, what are the skills, what are the experiences, what is the attributes which this person brings to the table, which I may be lacking, say social media skills, right? And that should then help or trigger a bell in the person's mind that, hey, you know what, I can reach out to this person and understand how social media works. I'm using social media only as an example, right? And the reverse as well. So as a youngster, if I'm able to look at somebody who's much more senior to me in terms of experience, in terms of age, I should be able to see and ascertain that, okay, what are those experiences which can help me? And therefore, a platform which enables people to reach out to each other by understanding the value add which they can have from their experiences is what I call as a two-way mentoring process. So that's one way. And again, I mean, a related point to that is reverse mentoring. I fundamentally believe that a top-down approach to mentoring is old school, right? I mean, we are in a stage, the fact that we're talking about multi-generational workforce and the fact that every generation has a certain value add which they bring to the table, we should be open, organizations should be open to enable reverse mentoring, wherein a youngster should be able to mentor someone who's senior to him in terms of age, right? And there should be openness on the other side as well. As I said, openness to understand that, hey, you know what, this person may be much younger to me, but has a certain skill set which is required in my role, but I don't know this. Social media skills, again, as an example. And unless we create an ecosystem where that reverse mentoring is not just enabled, but is also celebrated, it's not going to happen. So to me, two-way mentoring and reverse mentoring is something which haven't been done enough. It hasn't been done enough in at least in the Indian context, but it's something which is a given. We have to go down that path in order to leverage, the generational diversity in the organization.
There are three things which I just flashed by my brain now while you were reciting that part. Now, the first thing was I always like to look at the Indian winning team of 2012, right? It had like all three generations in it. It were people who were in their peak. They were young guns in early 20s, and then you had the seasoned bats of Sachins and the likes, and that just ended up becoming one of the best power play. The second thing is I remember the Italian World Cup winning team of football, right? You had the biggies like Buffon and Pirlo's who have been there, done that, and along with that, you had some young guns who were very enthusiastic to make a point. And the third thing what just came across my mind was this beautiful movie called The Intern, where she ends up hiring a really senior gentleman as an intern, and the cross learning, the cross mentoring, what the old guy learns from the young person. So coming to the theme of the whole unlearning part, what I grasp from you is that corporations should really unlearn the whole concept of traditional mentoring where it's a one-way traffic and start investing in opportunities which can facilitate two-way traffic. On the last point, and wiring it back to the theme of unlearning, what are the kind of attitudes or what are the kind of mentalities people across these generations should unlearn so that they can leverage on expertise of each other and be utilized?
Yeah, I mean, see, to me, the biggest barrier to learning is when you have a closed mind, right? So to me, the biggest unlearning which the people need to have in their mindset, irrespective of the generation they come from, is this thought process that they know it all. Irrespective of the level or the designation or the role which they are at. So because it starts with that. The moment you break that barrier, you just open up your vistas around the fact that, okay, there are things which I need to learn to be more effective. So I think we need to understand that as an organization, as a group of people, that there are always scope for learning new things, and the fact, I mean, Nokia is a great example, right? So the moment you take things for granted, right, and take market for granted for that matter, right, and you stop evolving, and the moment you stop evolving, you start becoming redundant, right? So as professionals, as long as you are on in your corporate journey, it's important for you to understand that, as that famous saying said, what got you here will not get you there, right? So that's the most fundamental thing. As long as we are able to take that piece out, I think everything else falls in place, because the moment you're taken that wheel of your eyes, that, okay, I know it all, as I keep saying, your ability to then see what is it that you need to learn to be more effective comes up. And then the moment you have that understanding, your ability to then see the other side, that what does a young colleague brings to the table who's just starting his career, and therefore reaching out to him to learn that becomes that much more clearer and visible. So that's the only thing which I would say. Obviously, it has to be backed by organizational environment, which we just talked about, and then interventions like reverse mentoring and two-dimensional mentoring kind of thing. But I think it starts with individuals realizing and unlearning the fact that, or unlearning this thought that you know it all, or you don't need to learn anymore, or you don't need to evolve anymore as professionals, as individuals.
Perfect, perfect. This has been highly enlightening. Number one, amazing insights. If I want to just condense it, the three key takeaways, what I understand out of this interaction, this beautiful conversation, is that number one, starting from the last, is have an open mind so that we can make sure that we are able to see through not age, but what true value, what a potential person can help you at the workplace. Number two is, I think it's high time to re-look at the traditional mentoring techniques, what work at what are employed at the workplace, about the one-way traffic mentoring, and start looking at two-way mentoring. And finally, about how can organizations cultivate an open culture where anybody can approach anybody and make sure that the learning goals are met. So this has been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Saurabh. I really appreciate it. And I hope that we are able to follow you on your journey about revealing and unveiling new practices at the workplace. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Omkar. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much.